Would you like to get more done in less time and make more revenue in your business as a result? As an entrepreneur couple, Ariel and I have had the privilege of being behind the scenes as marketing strategists, helping companies grow and scale by over $77 million. And during that time, we ourselves have learned how to grow successful businesses without growing apart with each other in our relationship at the same time. And here's what we can tell you. Even though we give all the glory to God for all of the results we've been able to experience, we noticed something that you listening to this have probably noticed as well. The results that you get in your business have a lot more to do with the amount of work that you get done with the time that you have, more than the amount of time that you work in your business. Yeah. So put simply, we all know
quality work that you get done.
100%. No, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Yeah. Because listen, we all know business owners, right? That work maybe 40, 50, 60 hours a week, and they don't make any more than 300 grand a year.
Many of us probably saw it with our parents, right? We saw our parents, whether they were business owners or not, working, 40, 50, 60, sometimes hour weeks and not making more money as a result, right?
Yeah. Simultaneously, we've been very blessed to help and coach and consult with companies who do 8 figures or more in revenue in their business. And they work no more than our parents who we have seen work, 40, 50, 60 hour weeks. Yeah. So what's the difference? The difference is not the amount of time that we put in the business. The difference is the amount of quality work that gets done with the time allotted. So thankfully, Ariel and I have learned some lessons over the years. We've learned some strategies on how to maximize our productivity when we're working together. And what we're going to share with you guys today are a few of our favorite productivity hacks, that we call them, to get more done in less time and work as efficiently as possible as an entrepreneur couple.
First of all, what we want to do is kind of define what we mean by productivity hacks, right? When we're talking about productivity, we mean getting the most output for the amount of input that you give on a daily basis. So you're already putting in the work. We just want to make sure that you're getting the right output, the output that you want, not just based on the amount of hours that you work, right?
That's right.
And when we say hacks, right, productivity hacks, we're talking about easy to apply tricks to getting more output from the input that you're already putting in. Right. And this is very, very important because, like Kyle said, if you are an entrepreneur couple, your level of revenue is directly tied to how efficiently you're able to work as a couple.
That's right.
Right. So what we want to do today is we want to save you, 10, 20 even hours per week to help you get more out of the effort that you're putting in. All right. So are you ready for it?
I am so ready for it.
Here are some of the productivity hacks that we use and that many of our clients use to get more output for the input that they put in.
That's right. Now, when we talk about productivity hacks, I think the best place to start is by looking at what makes us unproductive and doing the opposite of that. So if anybody here has ever heard of a guy named Charlie Munger, he was Warren Buffett's business partner. And I don't know if y'all know this, but we're talking people who are billionaires, like Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger. They built a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and they know a thing about business and productivity. If you grow a business to that level, I think we would all agree that people know something about business.
You know a little something.
And one of the things that I really respect about Charlie Munger is he kind of coined a term called inverted reasoning, which basically states this: whenever you want to solve a problem, you look at essentially what the opposite solution would be to that problem, and then you do the opposite. So for example, if anybody listening to this wanted to become happy, you would think about what makes you unhappy and do the opposite of that. That is inverted reasoning or inverted thinking. And I think it's a really cool tool because anybody listening right now, I want you to just imagine something for a second. Imagine what your day looks like when you feel extremely unproductive. What are some of the qualities of those days? What shows up for you? Are you focused? Are you unfocused? Are you multitasking, or do you have one task at a time until completion? Are you frazzled, or are you energized? These are some things to think about. Now, it's really interesting to just give you some thought fodder, if you will.
Thought fodder.
You like that word?
That's a fun word.
Thought fodder. We're going to throw some fodder in the fire of your mind as you are imagining what it looks like to be unproductive. For us, what we've identified, just looking over the last decade of us working together, is that there are what we would call 3 primary enemies of productivity.
Yes.
3 enemies. And if we could slay these enemies, like slaying a boss in a video game, you unlock so much more productivity just by preventing these 3 things from happening.
Yeah.
So Ariel, what is enemy number 1?
So enemy number 1 is lack of energy.
Mhm.
Lack of energy. If you're an entrepreneur, chances are you have found that your energy is required to grow a business sometimes. And with that said, the cap that your business will reach is sometimes determined by how much energy that you have to actually give, right? Now, of course, you can scale to a point that, it's not all dependent on your energy. You have a team, et cetera, in place, but your energy is still very important to get the ball rolling, right?
Yep.
And business is an athletic sport.
Yes.
It's an athletic sport.
Yes, it is.
So when your energy decreases, that shows up in the business, right? And so if you think of business as an athletic sport, how successful, how good is a worn out athlete, right? We just had the Olympics. If they had a lack of energy, how good are they going to show up at the Olympics? Probably not very good. Same goes for your business, right? So number 1 is a lack of energy. Okay. You ready for number 2? You're just gonna cue me up.
Just go for it.
Number 2 is improper priorities. And this one is huge.
Yeah, this would be number 2 of the 3 enemies of productivity.
Yes. Yeah. So number 2 is improper priorities. Now, what we mean by improper priorities is doing tasks in the wrong order of execution.
Mm-hmm.
And we see this with a lot of entrepreneurs where they have so much on their plate, but they're not prioritizing correctly or accurately in a way that's going to move the needle the most in their business or even in their life for whatever goal it is that they're trying to achieve. Okay. So they prioritize the wrong things first. They spend a lot of time and energy doing those things. Then they have less time and energy to do the things that actually move the needle.
Yeah.
Okay. So improper priorities. And then the last enemy of productivity is context switching. Context switching. So this is where you are switching tasks and switching different contexts between things. And it takes your brain a while to catch up and to switch from one task to another.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually a study done that said it can take an average of 9.5 minutes for your brain to adapt to a new context when you're switching between tasks and apps and all the different things that we have in the tabs and all the things that we have open, right? It can also take almost 10 minutes to get back into sort of that flow state, that state that you're in where it just feels like things are flowing very naturally for you, right? And one study found that it can take an average of 23 minutes and 15 seconds to get back to your original task after task switching or context switching, right?
Crazy.
So that's a lot of time that gets lost in just going from one thing to another, okay? So if those are the enemies, lack of energy, improper order of priorities, right, as well as context switching, then what are the things that we want to do in order to kind of win the productivity game, right? So what we want to do is slay the enemies, as Kyle said.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, we want to have, number 1, effective planning, and number 2, efficient producing. We broke this up into 2 because there are different things that we do to plan our time. And it's probably the same for you as well. There's different things that you do to plan your time. And then there's different things that you do to be efficient with the producing, the execution time that you have as well. So effective planning and effective producing.
Yeah, because if we know what the 3 enemies are for productivity, all we need to do is apply some strategies to effectively plan and to effectively produce in order to slay those enemies. So if you think of those enemies kind of like Goliath in the David and Goliath story, I know it only took David 1 stone to kill Goliath, but essentially what we're doing today is we're giving you 2 stones to throw at Goliath in order to kill the enemies of productivity. You like that analogy?
2 stones.
2 stones, right? 1 stone is effective planning. The second stone is effective producing, which means how effective we actually produce while we're working. Yeah. So let's break this up and start with part 1, which is effective planning. And we have specifically 3 kind of hacks that we use to plan effectively in order to boost our productivity.
Yeah. One of the things I want to say is we're going to kind of spit a few different things at you, and your goal is to just listen, take the things that apply, take the things that are resonant to you and apply those things, because there's probably going to be a lot that we give you, but there's probably 1 or 2 that you can take and apply today.
That's all right. Yep.
So 3 hacks that have helped us plan effectively. Number 1 is theme days.
I love theme days.
Love
me
days.
some theme days.
This was one of the biggest shifts that we made when running businesses is theme days. And what this does is it eliminates that context switching that we talked about, right? And this is based on a concept called batching, which is basically where you batch together certain tasks and things that are semi-related or feel related to you in terms of how your brain works. Okay. Now for us, an example of theme days is we have extrovert days and introvert days. Okay. So these may be a little bit different for you depending on how your brain works. But what we found is when we can create themes, and for us, we noticed that a theme was we use a different part of our brain, so to speak, on our extrovert days versus our introvert days. Extrovert days are for us Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. That's why a big part of why we do our live videos on Wednesdays, right? But these are the times that we do meetings, calls, podcast interviews, etc. And these are the days that we're basically being extroverted. We're talking to people. So those are our extrovert days, and it requires one mode of thinking and being.
That's right, because when you're being extroverted, you're being social. And the social part of the human brain is different than the analytical part of the human brain that is required for more of the deep work activities that business also requires.
So what we found was when we had like a meeting and then some internal tasks to do and then another meeting and then some more internal tasks, that context switching cost us a lot of time.
So much. And anybody listening, have you ever experienced this as well, where you have maybe 30 minutes to focus on looking at your accounting numbers, and then you have to hop on a Zoom call, but then you have to go write a content post, but then you have to get that done fast enough so that way you can go meet with somebody in person. You're constantly switching back and forth between extroverted and introverted mode. And something that was so helpful for Ariel was to say, screw that. Let's just put all of the extroverted activities on single days, so that way we could just stay in that mode and not have to switch. So
we have Monday, Wednesday, Friday extrovert days, and then we have Tuesday and Thursday introvert days. These are the days that we are refining SOPs, that we're writing copy, we're working on advertising campaigns, all the things that require us to kind of be like head down and working.
You love your introvert days.
I love my introvert days. I love people, but I love just being able to focus on one thing.
Love them. Oh my
Gets
gosh.
me going.
Yes, it does. Ariel looks forward to it. Every Thursday, she's just like, I get to focus on one thing and I don't have to switch. I love it.
And this goes into our weekends too, just to give you our example. On Saturdays, we consider those like our crash introverted days, which is where like that's our individual time. Usually Kyle and I kind of spend those days individually to process, to think through things, and to kind of just be introverted ourselves. And then we also have Sundays, which is where we commit to spending time together. So that even carries over into our weekends as well. And it helps us show up and be a lot more present for each other when we are actually together. Okay. So what is it for you? Maybe there are some days that you want to reserve for meetings. There's some days you want to reserve for more that administrative or behind the scenes sort of work. Maybe there are days that you reserve for sales calls. Maybe there's days that you reserve for delivering on whatever your product or service is. Right? What is it for you? And if you can assign themes to your days, it'll help you avoid that context and task switching that costs you a lot of time.
That's right.
All right. So number one was theme days. Kyle, do you want to give us number two?
Yeah, that's the first hack when it comes to planning.
That was very suave.
Yeah.
The way you like took a drink and then leaned into the microphone.
It's just, All
right, y'all.
Thanks.
Number two.
I'm just trying to impress you. That's really it.
It's working.
Yeah. I mean, everyone can see that. Everyone can see I'm just trying to impress this very, very beautiful lady next to me. But I'm going to stay focused.
Do you want to marry me?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. What do you think?
All right.
Want to get married? All right, y'all. You just saw it here. We got married again. That leads us to productivity hack number two when it comes to planning out your time and your business for maximum productivity. Ariel, what is number two? I'm going to do the curtain.
Number two is to plan tomorrow today. Plan tomorrow today. Kyle, take it away.
Plan tomorrow today.
I like that.
Yeah. This is a really simple technique that everybody listening could do immediately. It basically looks like at the end of your day, whenever that happens to be it 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, doesn't matter. You take maybe 5 to 15 to 30 minutes, depending on how long it takes you, to map out all of the things that you're going to do the very next day. This is so powerful. Now, why is this powerful? From a psychological standpoint, when you take the time to plan out your tasks and your time for the next day, you have this thing that happens at night when the lights go out and you lay down in bed called sleep. And it is amazing. Do you not love sleep? I love sleep.
I take my sleep very seriously.
And what's so cool is because you've consciously done this before going to sleep, your mind has the ability to subconsciously process all of the things that you are going to do the next day. So by the time you wake up the next day, you're not waking up in a frenzy trying to process in real time all of the things that you need to do that day. You just kind of already have an idea, so you don't have to wake up feeling that anxiety that so many entrepreneurs feel. So it's very simple. At the end of your day, look at the next day and plan out in order what you plan to do the next day. I promise you it is going to save you so much time and alleviate so much anxiety. Which takes us to the third hack when it comes to planning and boosting your productivity. And that is, Ariel?
That is what we like to call the cards trick. The cards trick. And this one was big for me. And to be honest, this was somebody shared this with me. I had a mentor of mine that shared this with me, and it changed my life because I heard a quote one time and it really stuck with me, which is, how many times have you done nothing because you couldn't do everything? Oof. Gets me every time.
Feel called out.
Right? How many times have you had like 5 minutes and you're like, well, I can't dig into anything right now because I only have 5 minutes. Or you've only had 15 minutes and you're like, well, shoot, what am I going to get done in 15 minutes? Right? So then you distract yourself, you scroll on Instagram, you do all the things and you don't actually get anything done. And then you waste all these little pockets of time. Right? Versus using what we call the cards trick. The cards trick is where you preemptively plan what are things that you can do that move the needle in your business when you only have 5 minutes, 15 minutes, or 30 minutes. Okay. So, for example, we had a client of ours that, again, she had a very busy schedule. She was a therapist and she was working with clients on a daily basis. And so there were times where she would go back to back to back meetings, but every now and then she had those little pockets of time. Right. And with that busy schedule, we recommended she do the cards trick, which is to, again, write down things that she can get done in 5 minutes, 15 minutes, and 30 minutes on a card, on like an index card, or you could use a Post-it note. You could do it digitally, whatever it looks like for you. So, for example, for our clients, we had her write down what could she get done in like 5 minutes. Right? 5 minutes. So for her, in the case of her business and her specific strategy, something she could do in 5 minutes is she could respond to a message on Instagram. She could send a message on Instagram to somebody. She could, reach out and, she could take a post that she already had created because she batched created her posts. She could take that and she could distribute that post, meaning she could post it on all the platforms that she needed, right? Those are just little tasks that for her specifically were needle movers in her business, talking to people and posting content, right? And she could do those things in 5 minutes. Then we looked at what are the things that she could do in 15 minutes. And again, this may be writing a post. This may be recording a quick video for her content. It's maybe different for your business depending on what your business is. But for her, she wrote down a list of things she could do in 15 minutes. And then 30 minutes, right? What are those things that you can do in 30 minutes? This looks like for her tracking some metrics. This looked like, actually recording a live video for her audience, right? There's so many different things. But again, when you're in the moment and you look at the time and you feel like you only have a few minutes, your brain is going to automatically go to distraction versus production. So if we can use the cards trick, write down things that you can get done in those little pockets of time and have those handy. Like I used to do this and I used to have it taped to my computer. I had little Post-it notes that I had taped to my computer. So I knew if I only had 5 minutes, I could just look at the decision fatigue of deciding what to do with my time was already taken care of because right there I had a list of things that I could do that would actually be productive and allow me to grow my business, even if I didn't have a ton of time.
Isn't it true that we knew somebody who grew a very successful company using this strategy? Yes.
This strategy alone is what led a friend of ours. She was working a corporate job. At the time, she grew a 7-figure company while working her corporate job using this strategy. I remember her telling me that she would send messages to people and like respond to emails while she was waiting at a traffic light. Why? Because she wrote down things that she could do. I think she even wrote down things she could do in like 1 minute versus just 5 minutes, right? And one of those was like responding to people. And so she would be at a traffic light and she would just respond to people. And that was her time to get things done. Even when she was working a full-time job, she was able to grow a 7-figure business as a result.
That's so crazy. Because if you think about it.
With a child as well. Actually.
Oh my gosh. Because if you think about it, there are so many little pockets of time where we're waiting for something, whether we're standing in line somewhere, we are pumping gas somewhere, we're sitting at a stoplight, we're waiting for somebody to do something.
Or even you wrap up a meeting and you have like 5 minutes till your next meeting.
Yeah. So rather than just saying, well, I can't get fully into something, you already have index cards you could pull out that already identifies the things you could do to move your business forward with 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 15 minutes to spare.
Yep.
Super cool. And essentially what that does is that wraps up the 3 biggest hacks that you could use for boosting your productivity when it comes to planning out your schedule,
Yes.
right? When I say 3 biggest hacks, I'm talking for Ariel and I, when we've built businesses over the last 10 years, these have been kind of the biggest needle movers for us specifically. Yes. And I'm curious, for those of you listening, which one of those 3 can you see yourself implementing? Can you see yourself planning tomorrow today? Can you see yourself using the index cards? Could you see yourself using theme days where you plan extrovert days and introvert days? You batch your meetings and you batch your deep work all into specific days. Yeah. Whichever it is for you, we invite you to test them out, because that work alone will boost your productivity before you even begin working.
Yeah.
This is all kind of the pre-work.
Yes.
And as I love to say all the time, I believe that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, because essentially what these 3 hacks do is they prevent future distraction from occurring in your life, which could save you hours, if not days, if not months, if not years of time, just by doing 1, if not all 3 of those simple hacks.
Yeah.
And what that takes us to now are the 3 hacks that you can implement immediately when it comes to actually producing in your work.
Yes.
And when we say producing, what we're talking about is once you finally sit down to start working on your business, whether it's pulling up a laptop or pulling up a phone or just getting into an environment where you're ready to start work, there are 3 things that you could do to get more done with the time that you're already spending. And we're going to talk about the first hack for what you could do to boost your productivity right now. Ariel, what is hack number 1 when people are producing and they want to be more productive?
Number 1 is planned response times.
Yes.
Planned response times. I'll let you talk about this one.
I love this hack.
Me too.
Planned response times. The issue for so many entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneur couples, is that we wake up a lot of times feeling reactive versus proactive.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is, how many of us listening to this right now have ever been in a scenario where the second you become conscious in your waking day, you start thinking about the emails you need to respond to, the Slack messages you need to get back to, the notifications on your social media apps, which we all know you're checking the first thing you wake up. All right, let's not
don't lie.
Yeah, let's not pretend we're holier than thou, right? I'm there too, right? We all have this like running list of things in our mind. And unfortunately, what happens is if we wake up that way, we immediately send our brain into reactive mode, which means that we immediately do not feel like we have control over the day. The opposite of being reactive is proactive, where you are productively deciding where you are going to put your time. And one of the best ways to do this is with planned response times. And what we mean by planned response times is this. I remember when I was a fractional CMO for a tech company, I had over 25 team members that would report to me. And with over 25 team members, some external, some internal, where they would send me emails and Slack messages like crazy, I would regularly wake up sometimes to 30, 40, 50 different messages that I could or should or maybe consider responding to. And that doesn't even count the DMs. That doesn't count the text. That doesn't count the myriad of messages that are coming to all of us as entrepreneurs on a day-to-day basis. And I remember at that time, at first, it was extremely overwhelming because all I would have to do is just like connect to a Wi-Fi signal. And I was immediately barraged with what felt like just all of these bullets of incoming messages coming at me. Yeah. And that makes productivity suck, because then what you're doing is you're just responding to everybody's apparent emergency that feels very, very urgent. And by the time you respond to everybody, you either A, don't have energy left for the stuff that you know is going to move the needle forward for you, or B, you kind of forget even where you are because you're just in this reactive, responsive mode.
Remember when we talked about context switching? When you go to respond to people and then you have to switch back to whatever productive thing that you were trying to do? Mm-hmm. Context switching.
I hate it. But then one day I heard a quote from a guy named Brendon Burchard that absolutely changed my entire perspective on this. Brendon Burchard said something to the effect of, another person's emergency does not have to become yours. And I was like, oof. That was so good. I'm going to say it again for the guy in the back. Another person's emergency does not have to become yours.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much. Because think about it, we live in such a crazy digital world where everybody feels like they can have direct access to you the second they decide to just bother you with their incoming thought.
And many people expect you to respond right away, right?
Insane.
That's an expectation.
Which is, to me, the most insane thing. Like, think about this. Prior to, 20 years ago?
Yeah.
We did not have the ability to rapidly communicate with somebody via DM or text message or anything like that. And for whatever reason, us as a human society have deemed it appropriate that if somebody texts you, they would expect a text back in a quick manner. Like, that to me is absolute insanity. Sorry, I get a little passionate about this subject because it's absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And here's what I want to say to anybody that is listening to this. I hope this sets you a little free today, that no matter who texts you or who messages you or who emails you, you have absolutely no reason to respond to them right away. Unless, of course, it is an emergency, right? There are situations where emergencies will come in, but just because somebody else has a demand of you does not mean you have to meet that demand right away. Yeah. You have 100% control over the time that you use to respond to people, which takes me to my main point, which is planned response times. Because yes, at some point you will need to respond to most of the people that are talking to you. But when do you do it? Here's what Ariel and I have discovered. Instead of literally reacting all day long to the amount of people that talk to us, which would literally throw us completely off our game now based on the amount of DMs and messages we receive on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. Instead of that, we actually block off time in our calendar that we call planned response times. And those planned response times are basically blocked off times where we will just sit and respond to everybody at one time. Yep. And by the way, it doesn't just include prospects. It doesn't just include clients. It doesn't just include partners or people that we're working with. This also includes like our family. Yep. Like there's absolutely nobody in my life that even thinks that they can call me during the middle of a workday and that I will pick up the phone and answer. Yep. Not a single person.
And they wouldn't want you to, because if you do, then you're distracted and you're not actually present with them.
That's right. Right. So hopefully this is setting somebody free today.
This also, go ahead. This also applies to your team as well. If you are in Slack all the time, then that you are not going to be able to be very productive.
That's right. That's why when people will text me back, they'll say like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. It took me so long to respond." I always say the same thing back. I say, you never have to apologize to me or anybody in your life for ever responding slowly. Like there's no, anyway, I'll get off my soapbox for a second. How does this practically apply to your business? Very simple. You could set specific times for when you respond to people. So for example, I usually don't check our Slack messages from our team or our clients until about noon each day. You know, sometimes give or take, but generally it's around noon. And as far as our emails go, we have an assistant that checks most of that. So we don't really see a whole lot of it. And usually our assistant will flag the emails that we need to check out. Right. And Ariel and I also block off times to respond to people later in the day. So if we have DMs or emails, etc., or even family members or friends to get back to, we will batch off like 30 minutes at the end of the day and just knock them all off in one fell swoop. Yeah. And that allows you, ladies and gentlemen, to be more productive and proactive during the day, knowing that you have time set aside to respond to people all at one time. Yeah. Cool. Productivity hack number 2 for producing efficiently is, Ariel, take it over.
Is priority filters. Priority filters. I know you've been talking a lot, but I'm going to give you this one too, because this one you helped me with quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, I only learned this from being able to have the honor of leading so many team members up until this point. So back to what I was saying about managing over 25 people at a tech company, we were able to grow and scale that company by tens of millions of dollars. In fact, by the time that I trained the new CMO to take over, all glory to God, we just based on projections and LTV, we were able to generate over $30 million in new business for this company in a year and a half. Now, a large reason for that is because we understood the marketing levers of how to generate new clients and how to do so at a profit. But the other lever that I knew how to pull was making sure that we can rally a team together to produce highly effectively and very, very efficiently. And the way that we did it is we recognized at all times what was the highest priority. Yep. Every single person on the team knew what the highest priority item was. And during this time, I created almost kind of like a filter for my own priorities to determine if I was setting priorities for an agency or for a team member or whatever. I was able to create a filter that helped me prioritize all of the tasks that we could or should or want to focus on. Yeah. So if you ever wake up or get to your computer or just ever wonder to yourself, what in the world do I prioritize out of all of the things that I have to do today? These 3 questions will serve you so well. They will help you and they will save you so much time, right? Question number 1 to ask yourself as an entrepreneur, if you want to save time, is what task is closely related to bringing in money for the business? So the easiest way to think about this is, are there people that you need to invoice that you haven't invoiced yet? Are there people that owe you money that haven't paid you yet? Are there people that are close to becoming a sale of yours? Are there people that you just need to switch a credit card in order to charge them? Whatever task is the closest to money hitting your bank account in your business, as a CEO who is responsible for that, you want to prioritize whatever item that is first.
Yeah. Now, if you have team members, of course, hopefully you have team members that are able to do these things without you micromanaging or managing these little tasks. But sometimes, depending on your stage of business, either you're doing these things yourself or you need to at least monitor and manage and make sure these things are happening with your team. And these are the same questions that you can give to your team to help them determine what to prioritize first.
That's 100% true. Yeah, our team members know this. So they just know this. They understand that like money coming to the bank account gets the highest priority. And the reason why is because, again, as a CEO, your job is to generate revenue. And whatever is the closest to the revenue coming through, that's what you can use as a filter to prioritize whatever brings in the money first. The second question to ask yourself when you're looking to prioritize all your tasks is, what task is closely tied with my schedule today? Meaning there are going to be times where somebody wants to schedule a meeting, somebody wants to reschedule a meeting, somebody wants to cancel a meeting, somebody, wants to do anything to your schedule that's going to affect your time. So if that's the case, whatever task is closely related to changing or shifting your schedule, you want to prioritize that next. Because by making a decision to change your schedule, that decision in and of itself actually has an avalanche of future decisions that are tied with it. So that's why that's the second question I asked myself. The third question I learned to ask myself is, what is holding up productivity for my team right now? And the reason why I ask that as the third priority filter is because if I myself am the bottleneck for our team, then I need to prioritize whatever task I need to complete, because by me holding up my team, I'm not just slowing myself down, I'm slowing the whole business down. Yeah. So those are the 3 things that have been really helpful. Those are what we would call priority filters. Number 1, what task is closely related to money hitting the bank account? Number 2, what task is closely related to changing or shifting our schedule today? And number 3, what is holding up productivity for our team members right now? If there are tasks that fall under those 3 categories, you prioritize those first and you knock them out first. Yeah. That takes us to the third productivity hack that has been extremely helpful for Ariel and I as we have grown businesses together as an entrepreneur couple. And that third productivity hack when we are producing in work is
work-life integration.
Oh, I love this.
Integration.
Yes.
Now, the reason why we say integration is because what this is integrating one productivity activity with another. Okay. So this means, like, to give you a few examples of this, if I am at the gym, there are times where I may be on the treadmill that I can be doing something that's not just walking on the treadmill, right? So there have been times that I will go, okay, what needs to happen today? And I have created podcast interviews while at the gym, meaning when we are going to be interviewing another guest on our podcast, which is called the Couplepreneurs Show, we like to think through the questions. We like to get to know our guests. We like to know, who we're interviewing and what are some really interesting and unique questions that we can ask them to get a little insight as to how they work together as a couple. And I will listen, I'll consume their content, and I will then create the podcast questions and basically the interview flow while I'm at the gym. Right. I will also sometimes, we talked about, response times. Gym time is a big time for me to respond to people. I plan that I'm going to respond to people when I'm at the gym in between sets. Yeah. So it's integrating one productive activity with another.
So what we just covered is as follows. Number 1, we identified the 3 biggest enemies for productivity. After we identified the 3 biggest enemies, we talked about how productivity as an entrepreneur couple comes down to things that you do when you're planning your work and things that you do when you are producing in your work. We gave you 3 hacks for planning your work. Yeah. Those 3 hacks are: number 1, planning out theme days. Number 2, plan tomorrow today. Number 3 is the cards trick.
Yep.
And then once you're actually in the work yourself, we gave you 3 amazing productivity hacks to actually produce effectively. Those hacks are: number 1, planned response times. Can I get an amen? Number 2, having filters, which are questions you ask yourself to determine what tasks to prioritize. And then number 3, work-life integration.
Yeah.
Now, my question to you as you're listening to this is, out of all of the things that we talked about, what do you see moving the needle the most for you right now in your business?
Yeah.
Because if you just do one of these things, just one of these things, I'm sure that you can imagine yourself saving 10 to 20, if not 30 or 40 hours a week just by doing this. Now, this is all very, very important for us as couplepreneurs. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, because again, it's one thing to be just an entrepreneur. You're responsible for your time. You're responsible for the output based on your input. But when you're an entrepreneur couple, not only are you doing that together and you're both responsible for a certain amount of input, you have responsibilities within the business, but you typically have household responsibilities. You want to be able to show up for each other as a couple. You want to be able to show up for your family, right? And being able to do these things allows you to get things done faster, but also to do so in a way that prioritizes your energy for the things that matters most.
That's right. And especially when you're doing this together as a couple,
Yes.
like, it's not just you that benefits from
Yes.
these productivity hacks. Your partner also benefits from them as well, because as you are more productive, you get more results in your business.
Yep.
As you get more results in your business, your partner is generally a lot happier. And vice versa. Am I right on that?
You make more money.
You make more money, right? And the time that you put in the business, it doesn't feel like you're losing it. You actually can feel at the end of the day, when you put your head on the pillow at night, like you accomplished something that is worthwhile.
Yeah.
And you feel accomplished, like you've achieved a lot with the time that you've been blessed to have today. For that reason, I just want to encourage you, choose one of these productivity hacks that we covered today. Go ahead and try them out, implement it in your business, and let us know how it goes for you.
Yeah.
Because the more that you use these things, the more productivity you're going to have in your business. The more productivity you have, potentially, the more money you will make. And as you continue to elevate yourself in the sphere of influence that you have, you will continue to show yourself and the rest of the world around you that you don't have to choose between having a successful business or a successful relationship, because you are making time for both.
Yeah.